Hello there, and welcome to Slooh. I'm Jerry Montour, your host and expedition leader, as always, as we discuss the second largest planet in our solar system tonight, and that would be Saturn. But why Saturn and why tonight? Well, because at this moment, the space probe Cassini is taking a somewhat risky dive through Saturn's massive rings as it begins its grand finale after 20 years in space. Now, we were hoping to get a live look at Saturn tonight through our telescopes, as you see them here in the Canary Islands, but Mother Nature has other ideas. We can show you here that we're fighting some clouds and some very high humidity. So in order to keep our telescopes in good working order for our Slooh community to use, we're keeping things closed up pretty tight. But that community is helping us out. They've been capturing images of Saturn from our live telescopic feeds for years now, and we'll be taking a look at some of the best of them tonight, and they are pretty spectacular. So we got a lot of great stuff coming at you. In a moment, I'll be joined by Ray Paoletta, space writer at Gizmodo, who will help us understand the Cassini mission and why NASA is planning to crash it to protect one of Saturn's moons, Enceladus, which could harbor alien life. And since we're talking about life on other planets, what would a discovery like that mean for people on this planet? We'll check in with Slooh's human spirit editor, Helen Avery, to find out. So that's called just coming up in just a few minutes here on Slooh. Space for everyone. Don't go away. Give the gift of the universe. Give the gift of Slooh. A celebration of every magical moment in the night sky. For just $60, you can give the budding space explorer in your life the gift of a full year of Slooh membership. It's available now at slooh.com. We've been all over the world chasing solar eclipses to share with you. This time, you're coming with us. Join Slooh as we expedition to Stanley, Idaho to celebrate the transcontinental eclipse on August 21st. Sign up today at slooh.com. Space is limited. Hello and welcome back to Slooh. Jerry Montour here. We are talking about the gas giant Saturn, and there is a shot captured by our Slooh community back in 2004. Saturn tonight is in the discussion, as well as the Saturn probe Cassini. Cassini's been orbiting the planet for 13 years now, officially launched back in 1997, and is currently starting the first moves of its grand finale. This is a series of maneuvers to collect as much data as possible before it crashes into the planet. Cassini's been through a lot since it launched 20 years ago, so here to help us get to know the mission, its milestones, and the reason it is ending is Ray Paoletta, space writer at Gizmodo. Ray, welcome. Can you give us a quick idea of what Cassini is doing right now as we speak?
Absolutely. So at about 5 a.m. this morning, Eastern Time, Cassini completed the first of its 22 dives of its grand finale mission. So that all went well. Unfortunately, we won't really know what happened until tomorrow at 3 a.m. the earliest, when we can regain contact with Cassini. So yeah, it had a successful first run and just 21 more to go.
So Ray, what would you say are the biggest highlights of the Cassini mission these last 13 years?
There are so many. And of course, pouring through the pictures is a testament to that. But I think that some of the most exciting certainly are finding lakes filled with methane on Titan, which is the largest of Saturn's 62 moons. I think that obviously all of the Enceladus discoveries are incredible. So in 2015, when Cassini was able to actually sample the plumes of Enceladus, I think that's going to lay the groundwork for a lot of the future research on Enceladus and answer some of the questions hopefully we have about finding life potentially there. It's a great first step.
All right, so let's talk about that specifically. You mentioned plumes. What do they or what do we think they consist of on Enceladus? And is that what makes people think that it might harbor life?
Yes, so the plumes actually are coming from these vents in the South Pole, and we think that they are material from the subterranean ocean on Enceladus. That subterranean ocean, despite the fact that the planet itself is very icy, the waters of that are supposedly they could be in 90-degree Fahrenheit temperature, so it's actually quite warm, which is good when you're thinking about microbes. We know that the subterranean ocean contains molecular hydrogen. That's the most recent discovery. So besides that, it really has all the ingredients for life, and it's very encouraging if you are a believer like myself or just an astronomer. It's great stuff.
I happen to be a believer as well.
I
The
want to
odd,
believe.
yeah, the odds are certainly in the favor of there being life somewhere else besides planet Earth. You mentioned the word microbes. Do you think it might be more than that? Is that a possibility?
Well, I actually got to interview an astrobiologist recently about this, and I'm hoping for space tardigrades. But given that we won't find anything like a space narwhal lurking underneath there, it'll still be nice to have some microorganisms. Just not being alone in the universe as life would be comforting.
Bummer. Our producer
Right.
Trish was hoping for space polar bears, but maybe
I'm
too
listen.
much.
I'm hoping too.
All right, so now Cassini's reaching the end of its run, literally running out of fuel, right? So now what? What's the alternative?
So the reason why NASA has decided that it's best, so September 15th is when Cassini will make its final dive and plunge itself into Saturn's atmosphere. And it's doing that because, as you mentioned, it's running out of fuel. And instead of risking the fact that it could crash into one of Saturn's 62 moons, it's going to plunge itself for the better of the mission. And like I was saying, we don't want to contaminate these planets with anything that Cassini might have picked up in its 13 years in the Saturn system. So this seems like the best way to go. It'll literally be going out in a blaze of glory. So at least it'll go out in a really incredible way. But I have to say, it's going to be really sad for all of us who've covered it, who've watched it, who've really become a community around Cassini. It's going to be sad. I will be sad.
You've been around the Cassini mission, covering it, writing about it for how long? The entirety of its mission?
No, not the entirety. For the last few years, I've been following it, but over the last year or so, I've really been covering it the closest that I ever have, and we've gotten back some of the most incredible images this year. I don't know if you've seen the ones of Pan and Atlas that have come out over the last year. They almost look like little dumpling moons. They're really exquisite, and that's just all Cassini. I hate to say it, it's like classic
Oh,
Cassini,
yeah,
coming up
well,
with
look
some of the
at
most
this.
incredible images like it's nothing.
Here's one right here. Saturn captured from behind by Cassini. I mean, it almost looks too pretty to be real.
Yeah, they're absolutely surreal. That's the feeling I get looking at them, and I think it came out last week. I think that to me, the one that really speaks to the entirety of the Cassini mission is the one that came out last week, where it's a view of Earth from taken from within Saturn's rings, and Earth is literally just a tiny white dot in the distance, and then to its left is the Moon, which is an even tinier white dot. And to me, I can't help but get emotional when I look at that picture. It really puts so much of our position in the universe into perspective. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really does. All right, before I let you go, is there any chance of Cassini 2 happening?
Well, I've listen. I would send a million Cassinis if I could. But I know that what might happen is a trip to Enceladus. So there have been missions that have been proposed, such as the Enceladus Life Finder, things like that, that suggest, hey, maybe we should go to Enceladus and see if maybe we should drill there, or maybe we should just kind of search and see if we can get a look at that subterranean ocean. These are all things that we'll have to consider in the next 5 to 10 years. So, as the interest in these ocean worlds grow, meaning Enceladus and Europa, um, hopefully we just get more science out there.
Yeah, we can only hope. And there, by the way, is another beautiful shot from Enceladus. All right, it's literally the end of an era. Ray, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Wonderful
A
stuff.
pleasure, thank you.
All right, Ray Paletta, space writer for Gizmodo. All right, coming up, Helen Avery joins us to talk about how discovering life on Enceladus would change life here on Earth. So stay tuned. We've been all over the world chasing solar eclipses to share with you. This time, you're coming with us. Join Slooh as we expedition to Stanley, Idaho to celebrate the transcontinental eclipse on August 21st. Sign up today at slooh.com. Space is limited. We're excited to announce the release of our first book, The Saturn Above It, an anthology of short fiction about space. Available now at slooh.com. Give the gift of the universe. Give the gift of Slooh. A celebration of every magical moment in the night sky. For just $60, you can give the budding space explorer in your life the gift of a full year of Slooh membership. It's available now at slooh.com. Hey there, and welcome back to Slooh, Space for Everyone. We're talking all about the gas giant Saturn. There he is, or she, and the Saturn probe Cassini. We learned earlier that the whole reason NASA has decided to crash Cassini into Saturn is to protect potential life elsewhere in our solar system. But what would it mean for folks here on planet Earth if we did find life elsewhere? To find out, we're consulting our house expert, Slooh's human spirit editor, Helen Avery, is on board. Helen, welcome. If we did find life elsewhere, how do you think that would affect people?
That's an interesting question, and it's one that NASA's been onto. I mean, as our potential for finding life out there is increasing, then we have to start asking these questions, like how are we going to react? So interestingly, in 2015, NASA actually gave a grant to the Center for Theological Inquiry to ask just these questions, to do a study, and that study ends at the end of this year. So we'll find out exactly how people would react after that study, really, because there's not been too much out there about it. But obviously now that we're, obviously with Cassini and other things happening out there at the moment, we're beginning to ask that question. So, but I think that the first thing to ask is, what do we mean when we say life? Are we talking about life as we know it? Because let's not forget that, we've experienced life, but maybe life evolves elsewhere and we aren't even able to perceive it. So who knows? Are we talking about that? Are we talking about life in the form of, just sort of the beginning stages of life on a different planet or a moon? Or are we talking about fully fledged beings out there? And I think each one of those would have a different reaction with people. But if we're talking about life as we know it in its very early stages, I actually think that people would be just like amazed with it, and it wouldn't be sort of a potential reason for upset at all, because obviously they're doing a study to find out just what people are going to think, especially religions and from a psychological and philosophical standpoint.
Well, as you mentioned, what is life? What are we talking about? Microbes? Are we talking about space polar bears? Depending on what we are talking about, do you think there are groups that would have a harder time dealing with it than others?
Well, again, it's fascinating, because I don't know what you think when you ask that question, but I think, oh God, what does this mean for religious groups? If there's life out there. But someone did do a study, and what was interesting, that if they asked non-religious people, what do you think it would be a negative, have a negative impact for religion if we were to find life out there in the universe. And non-religious people, 70% of them said yes, it would be a negative impact for religion. But then they asked religious people, and only 30% thought it would be a negative, which I thought was really interesting. And it kind of makes sense. A lot of their reasoning was the religious people, was that there is room in the scriptures for life out in the universe, for one. And, you know, I mean, I know that I've read this, some of the Judeo-Christian religions, and the Jewish religion will say, you know, we have angels, and that's the same in Islam and obviously Christianity. There are angels, you know, that's life that's outside of Earth, that's somewhere out in the universe. So we're already open to the idea of life being out there. And, you know, we can read into the scriptures that God governs all of everything in the universe. And then when you look at sort of the Eastern religions, well, that's embedded in it, that there's life elsewhere. They have different planes and different realms and different worlds. And the Vedas, you know, the ancient sort of texts from that, like Hinduism has come out from, they're very inclusive of life out there. So actually it sort of begins to make sense. And then don't forget, we have certain religions who claim that they come from different planets. So they're very on board. That would back up their religion no end. So, yeah.
So Helen, do you think discovering life mostly positive or mostly negative overall?
Again, I think it depends on the life. Friendly life, non-threatening life, I think nearly everyone's on board with. And we asked our community actually on Facebook to sort of tell us how they felt. And the answers were all excited, curious, wonder, what an adventure. So I do think, you know, early stage life, would it be a massive, I mean, it's a huge shift for us to know it. But would it, I think it would be a soft reaction, probably. I mean, not from scientists, they'd be leaping up in the air, and astronomers. But for most of us, we'd just be, I would like to think that we would feel humbled, because what it implies to me is that, you know, we might not be the first planet. You know, maybe planets have already lived their cycle. Maybe, you know, and we're one in many that have come after it. You know, so already we're starting to think of ourselves not as the most important, but we're starting to put ourselves in perspective. And also just, you know, it's beautiful to think, if we do see early stage life, our planet will be gone by the time that life may have evolved to where we are. And when you start to think like that, I think it's sort of, you know, a beautiful way, you know, as Ray mentioned about it, just seeing the photos from Earth of, you know, from Saturn, things start to get put in a bigger perspective. So I like to think it'll be a big kumbaya moment. However, as we know, for some people, it just, you know, they're never going to be that person. They'll find something to grumble about, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we're always going to have those kind of people. And finally, you know what? I think the discovery of the ingredients that are necessary for life have vindicated what I've felt all along, and that is it's supporting the notion that there is life. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of potential planets out there who potentially could harbor life, and we've got one in our solar system. So the chances that there is life out there someplace, what I call intelligent life, I think the chances are pretty good. How do you feel? Do you think that there is what we would call intelligent life out there somewhere?
I do. I'm with you. Like if you subscribe to the infinite, then obviously within the infinite there are other planets with intelligent life on. So I'm very much with you, and I hope that we in our lifetime really sort of dig deep and find evidence, and elsewhere as well. I think it's very comforting, as Ray says. I feel comforted to think that we're not alone here, and I certainly believe. I have, like, I'm a bit like questioning of whether life on other planets will look like life here, and will we be able to perceive that life, and how will that be? So I don't know, you know, exactly how it's going to look, or even if we'll be able to see it. But I certainly believe there is life out there beyond just our planet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I seriously doubt that there are going to be clones of us out there someplace, but
Hope not.
and who knows? They might whatever life is, whatever we call life, or whatever they call life, it may already be here and we just don't even know it. So, I mean, look
Oh.
at Washington, for crying out loud. Helen, thank you so much for joining us as always. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, Helen Avery, Slooh's Human Spirit Editor. You can find lots more human reactions to things going on up in space by visiting our community content section on slooh.com. Well, that about does it for us here tonight. This is only the start of Cassini's grand finale. The probe will be making a number of maneuvers around the planet. In fact, 21 more through its rings in the coming months before crashing into the planet in September of this year. It'll be sending data back to Earth until its final moments, and we'll be tracking it continuously here at Slooh. You can join in on keeping an eye on Saturn and the rest of the cosmos by making a reservation on our telescopes in the Canary Islands and Chile. Any paying member can reserve time on all of our telescopes, looking at stars live, looking at planets live, galaxies, nebulae, all manner of celestial objects. I mean, here's another image captured by our Slooh community last year. Check that. It's just awesome. Members also get plenty of chances to watch all our featured content here in the Space Situation Room. We do this all the time here at Slooh, and coming up, there are plenty of chances to tune in for some great shows. We'll be streaming the Eta Aquarids meteor shower on May 5th, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, and later in the month of May, we'll be celebrating Buddha Day, learning about the importance of the moon to Buddhist celebrations and the calendar. It's all coming up here on Slooh. So join the community, interact with other members, and tune in. It's easier and much more fun than you think it is, believe me. But for now, I'm Jerry Montour. Thanks for stopping by. You've been watching Slooh, Space for Everyone.